Opening a retail location doesn't sound too hard. Find a space, sign the lease, build a store. But once that lease is signed, the real work starts. Across the US, there are just under 3 million retail establishments, and every year, thousands of new locations get opened across chains and franchises. That means this process isn't occasional. It's happening every single day across the country. And every time, teams get out of sync, timelines slip, information gets scattered. That's what slows things down and slows revenue down, and the value of the property gets impacted potentially. Our guest today has seen this up close. He started at Apple, then Tesla, helping manage retail rollouts at scale across huge footprints and fast timelines. Now, he's building SiteRise. Our guest today is Dillon, founding partner of Oak Group and SiteRise. Hi, Dillon. Where does this podcast find you?
Hey, Edward, how are you? In the Bay Area.
Where else? Place for innovators. Let's jump into it. So you've been inside Apple and Tesla. What does opening stores actually look like behind the scenes?
You'd be surprised. In the early days, you can muscle through a bunch of openings quickly, but as you start to scale, it really becomes pertinent to have a great system in place. And at Apple and Tesla, we learned that pretty quickly.
So where do retail rollouts usually break that the typical audience cannot see?
Transparency, teams not working together, they tend to bust at the seams when teams aren't in sync and having the visibility into their data. A lot of what we bring together is clean data in and clean data out, but visibility. I tell my clients and customers all day that visibility brings accountability. And the minute you can start to bring visibility together, your teams are really going to be in sync and working on the same stuff together.
So when a store opening gets delayed, what's usually the root cause?
Oh man, it starts early on. Typically, these things tend to snowball. We see real estate deals and real estate team members pushing to get their deals done, design trying to keep up, and construction trying to put an estimate together. When these teams aren't in sync and have visibility into everyone's progress, things start to push pretty quickly. And when we push a retail store, Ed, a lot of things get really expensive quickly.
Right. And how has labor shortages and supply chain disruption with material costs going up, how has that impacted the space?
You see a lot of teams these days looking at long lead procurement items early and really looking at how they can assess their purchases to exercise a discount or to bring to light materials that are ready and here to play stateside. We do this with clients today on the services side of the business, where we often will pre-order, in bulk tile or fixtures or light fixtures or millwork, pieces, so that we have them in stock and ready to go as we roll out rapidly.
I see. So what's something operators underestimate about opening new locations in today's environment?
Quickly operators underestimate the good foundation of the source of truth application, knowing where your nomenclature, file names, files are, and transparency come to light. I think when you look at operators quickly, they can, like I said, muscle through these pretty quickly. But as you start to scale, having that foundation of a single source of truth application is pretty critical. I think it's underestimated quite frequently.
Right. And I mean, we're talking about retail here. It's we would compare how innovative, making a general statement across the board, which, generalizations usually don't do justice, but put the finger on the pulse on how innovative a space is. I would say retail is a lot more innovative, or retailers and retail operators are a lot more innovative versus other asset classes like office, which, like I always say, up until COVID, retail had already been hammered by e-commerce, whereas office was at full occupancy in most markets, most major markets. And then they didn't know what hit them when they went from 100% occupancy to 0% occupancy. And now we're seeing them adopt tech solutions, and be better about their data. Whereas retail, correct me if I'm wrong, but they've been forced to innovate way before.
It's forced retailers to not only innovate, but also look at things that weren't considered before. When malls were flooded with people and you weren't just the attraction you were walking by, how to get your customers in the door, retailers now are looking at things like the first impression. How do I really draw a wow to my customers to bring them in? We work with brand Lilly Pulitzer, and they spend a ton of time and detail on their storefront because that's the first impression for their customer. And we see that carry all the way through to their clothing and fixtures that we bring to life with them, but also to their store design. So I think you see a lot of retailers really looking at how to really innovate on the customer experience side and first impression side.
So tell us what SiteRise is and what are you doing?
It's a retail innovation platform that brings real estate, design, construction, new store openings, and operations under one platform. It allows everyone to have the same visibility, nomenclature, and tools at their fingertips to really allow them to see what their peers are working on and make sure they're running to run at the same pace. It's critical to have data, but it's really critical to have it in the same place so that the functionality is there.
So for retailers that aren't using SiteRise yet, how do they manage store development?
Spreadsheets, Google Drive, OneDrive. Oftentimes we see every department having their own spreadsheet of the same data, talking differently. Some might call it Third Street Promenade, some might call it San Diego or Santa Monica, and others are calling it Southern California, and they're all talking about the same dot on the map. And we see this quite frequently in bringing spreadsheets to light. There's nothing wrong with a good Google Sheet or a Smart Sheet as long as it's consistent across the brands. A lot of brands run on them. But when you start to really enhance the data behind it, where are the files associated? Where are the comments, the communication behind it? And really bringing that visible across your peers, you really see SiteRise come to life there.
Fascinating. I mean, we're talking about stuff that sounds very basic on the surface, right? The name of that location, right? We're all talking about the same location. Something else that you said is very interesting is that at the same pace. I mean, different parts of the business are used to working at different pace, whether you're depending on, the procurement side or you're waiting on someone at a different office to come up with an answer on the plans. I mean, and yeah, you have people sometimes working in different time zones or different working hours. So how do you approach the pace aspect?
Well, think beyond pace for a minute, Edward. Think about transparency for a minute. When I can have a construction manager giving an estimate on a deal that's being made in the real estate phase, I might be able to apply the landlord's dollars or tenant improvement allowance a lot more effectively than a white box. And so when teams work together, the pace starts to stride together. We start to see teams accessing data from their peers. Hey, take a look at this letter of intent for me. Or, hey, we have a cost allocation from a landlord or a work letter. Can I get some eyes on this for my construction team? Hey, design, does this fit in with what you're thinking? And so when we start to see that, as opposed to just a deal being made with a deal, passed on to design to do a test fit, passed on to construction to cost, we're starting to see those things really interweave and work together and bring that transparency to light.
It seems like working all in tandem, right? It's not like step one, step two, step three, because then you might have to go back to step one.
Exactly. Exactly.
Going back to the juggernauts that you helped build, Apple and Tesla, what did they get right that others still struggle with?
When people ask this question, I focus in on Tesla pretty quickly. I joined Tesla in the early days. We had 3 or 4 showrooms when I started. And the first thing that senior management brought me in to do was to build the foundation tool and to build stores at the same time. This is Tesla in 2013, at really early days. Cash was not king. And so I had to be a construction manager while building a tool. So not only did I get to be an expert in the field, but also taking that process and what was really working day to day and implementing into software to help grow. They still use the tool today, which is pretty cool. But I think what Tesla got right is they invested in the foundation up front really early on.
Fascinating. Yeah, I mean, everyone thinks Tesla overnight success, but no, it's been hard at work. I mean, Dillon didn't sleep on the factory floor for nothing. So, I mean, there are tools right now in the market, like, more specialized tools like Procore or more generalist tools like Asana or even Monday that are collaboration tools. But why don't they solve this problem of coordinating store openings and construction?
They do a really good job of solving pieces of the problem, but not the full workflow from retail expansion. Like I said, it spans from real estate, design to construction and operators. And a lot of the tools that are out there today focus on one element of that or trying to tie the two together. But when we built SiteRise, we built it to connect all of them into one system. And I think that's the biggest difference is a lot of those tools are siloed into one division. Procore is a great construction tool. Asana and Monday are great task management platforms. I don't know that any of them do what we do individually and allow the retailer to slightly customize the environment to really speak their language.
I see. There's a lot of talk about data nowadays, proprietary data. That's what is being fed to the LLMs. That's what can power unique decisions that are tailored to each company, to each client. But you've also talked about what it means for retailers to own their own data. So why is it important for retailers to own their own data?
When you look at what a retailer needs to own their own data and what that really means, if their data isn't clean and centralized from the beginning, nothing else works, right? Poor data leads to bad decisions and teams lose trust quickly in a system. right? Good data enables everyone to have visibility, and visibility drives execution, And so I think two key things to focus on there, Edward. Clean data. We allow the client to put boxes and drop down menus and really prescribe what they want to call it. For example, some teams call it a letter of intent, some call it an LOI, some call it NSO, some call it new store opening. And so SiteRise allows them to pick their vernacular to really bring clean data in. And that allows the LMs and everything else to talk in synchronous and really work together. We just rolled out a new feature, tagging photos, AI tagging photos. The photo comes in, goes to the LLM, and now we've added custom tagging. And so you, the user, or the administrative team on your side can actually pick tags that are custom to you. And so you're not just saying storefront. It could be a metal storefront, glass storefront, ACM panel. It really allows you to drill in further and tag the product and the photo or the document in a way that's going to be unique to your instance, which is pretty cool.
That is very cool. Reminds me of the work we were doing at Cape Analytics, a company that took aerial imagery of single-family homes, exterior homes, and ran computer vision on the images to extract the physical condition of the home to then power insurance decisions and investment decisions. So do you think this type of computer vision or AI tagging could be valuable down the line for like underwriters or insurance or other players in our industry?
I think more on the investment side too. When investors are looking to invest into retail or lead a C round, they're asking a series of questions back and forth. And the ability to collate your data with a smart tag across your entire platform allows you to be that much more efficient again and bring the data to the life that they're looking for quicker. And I'm sure you can see that same thing play out on other sides of the business as well.
Talk about the progression of SiteRise. I mean, you started as services before software. So, talk about how that evolution came to be.
Yeah, when I left Enjoy, I was a project manager that had built software at Tesla and Enjoy previously. And I had this thought to go build stores for people or projects for people that I'd worked with previously that needed help, and quickly saw fit for the need for cross-functional reporting, dependency tracking, schedule management that no one was using, which is what we had done at Tesla and at Enjoy, and lives in Apple. And so quickly we saw a need to build this, and then we saw market fit. And running the service side of the business, which we still run today, does allow us to see market fit with our customers and enhance features that they onboard today. It kind of gives us the greatest test case and QA team out there. We have the ability to build what our customers are asking for.
What was the aha moment? When did it become clear that this needed to be a product?
There's probably several, to be honest with you, but I think it really seemed fit at Tesla when we deployed this across the team. I think I only had 90 days to build the first version. That's all my boss gave me. And I think as soon as we rolled out to the team and saw everyone could work under one umbrella and build the transparency, we had a lot of aha moments there. Now it's adapted, it's changed. I always say the clay was kind of still wet. We're still molding that product today, but in doing so, it's kind of allowed us to build the next best version constantly,
I know this may vary by type of retail and the footprint, and if it's a restaurant or a store or gas station or whatnot, but how do your customers think about ROI? Yes, ultimately it's certainty of execution. It's opening by the deadline or before, or at least on budget or under budget. But what do they care about? What are you hoping to accomplish when it comes to ROI?
One common denominator: open the doors faster. The quicker I can open the door, the quicker I can start bringing in revenue and take myself out of the red and turn it into a black. The number one thing we try to build for our customers constantly is efficiencies to help them open the doors by building transparency of other teams, like we talked about, cleaning data. All those things chip away at the block of opening your door a day faster, a week faster, 2 weeks faster.
Everyone wins when that happens.
Everyone wins.
So you've said construction can influence the deal itself. What do you mean by that?
My favorite two words in the world of real estate is white box. This is a white box deal. It's almost up there like as is. And in my opinion, I think it's really critical is that if I get a letter of intent or even LOD, at least outline dimension from a landlord, I can take my prototype as a retailer and build it into there, and now take the tenant improvement allowance and have the landlord start to do some of that work for us. For example, if we're going to move a restroom around, there's base building utilities and systems in there. Maybe instead of taking my full TI, the landlord does some of that work ahead of time while we're negotiating the lease or while we're just completed, while I'm in for permit, right? So we can do two parallel paths, and I can have the construction team and design team really influence that early on in the deal.
I feel this is something that is not spoken about enough. It's treated almost as an afterthought. It's like, yeah, let's get the space and then we'll figure out the construction, everything. But no, it's like very much tied to bringing about a successful launch of a new open.
You have to roll the 8 ball back in planning early. And there's spaces that we look at with retailers and you spend money on a survey and it doesn't fit. You run a test fit with an architect and you're like, you know what? Our Lego blocks of building don't actually fit in here. We really need to look at a different space. And instead of wasting that time negotiating a deal, you move on. And so there's a lot of advantages to getting the team involved really early.
Well, curious, what's been the reception of let's say retail brokers, because they come early naturally in the value creation cycle. They help you secure your site, but their job is done in most cases once the site has been secured. So, what's been the reception, and have they shown interest in SiteRise, or at least in introducing SiteRise to their clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of our brokers love the ability to enhance the deal with client-specific data early on. It allows them to make a better, more educated deal for everybody. Instead of making a deal and then going back and having two people that aren't so happy about it, you really work toward one happy point together, which I think is pretty critical. So I think a lot of our brokers on the platform are heavily engaged. We have brokers in the tool commenting every day, going back and forth and looking at landlord deliverables and focusing that to the construction team and moving that data back and forth pretty regularly.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah, it's cool.
truly a collaboration tool across all
Absolutely.
stakeholders involved. Like that's very rare in real estate. It doesn't really happen. So right now, without SiteRise, who is feeling the pain the most between large retailers, emerging brands, franchise operators, or all the above?
The franchise model is pretty cool for us. If you think about franchise models for a second, the franchisor prescribes what data they drive and require from the franchisee. Signage permit, drawings, a lease, executed approved drawings from the city. SiteRise can actually help manage what we call the oversight model and allows them to say to their franchisee, these are the things you need to do to get approved by us. And so we see it accelerate on that side, and we also see it accelerate really, really well on the standard retailer side. Quick service restaurant, food and beverage as well. We do really well in the health and wellness facility area. Large box gyms work with us on a regular basis, and they have the ability. I take Planet Fitness and Excel. They're a great client of ours. They swap out their equipment as needed, and the fitness industry is constantly evolving, and so it really gives them the ability to have a great footprint and also the ability to see what's next and help space plan properly. We see the system play really well in a lot of different varieties.
How do you get the foot in the door in terms of like getting all the stakeholders to participate, and use SiteRise, right? I'm assuming you start with a retailer looking to open new locations, but how do you get the buy-in, or at least on board, whether directly or indirectly, all the stakeholders?
We see buy-in off the bat from the construction real estate teams on the retailer side, but anyone who typically sees the need for process and understands how to flow. We also get referrals from our GCs and vendors constantly. People who are in the platform that can see it happen. We work with a millwork team that can see a punch list item today. They can get tagged in that. They can fix whatever's needed on that millwork and ship it out without going back and forth in email looking for photos. All that communication lives in one tool. So to touch on change management, which you were briefly talking about for a second, it's never easy to bring any software or tool into any company. We have an onboarding team specifically helping take your process out of your brain, out of your team's brain, out of your smart sheets, your Excel sheets, and really bring it to light in SiteRise. So we try and ease the pain of onboarding as quick as possible to help navigate what is the future of your new process and bring that aha moment to light.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies out there underestimate that change management component, but it sounds like you have it
Absolutely.
top of mind. Well, get your thoughts just in general about the future of retail, because a lot's been said. A lot of times the death of retail, physical retail, has been pronounced, but there seems to be a change in what consumers ultimately are looking for when they make the effort, quote unquote, of going out there in person to a store. So what type of concepts do you see are more durable in terms of incentivizing people to go out there and visit them?
Oh man, loaded question, but I think in my opinion, we're seeing retail come back pretty strong. We're seeing a lot of retailers out there building more touch points and valuable touch points, allowing the customers to interact and focusing really on customer service. Nobody wants a bad retail experience. We always say one negative interaction has 20 detractors. One positive interaction, tells 5 people. So a lot of our retailers are focusing on quality employee, quality interaction, and really making sure that they're able to deliver an experience that's out of the park.
Absolutely. I mean, there's certain things that I would refuse to buy online no matter what. New
Yeah.
shoes, I need to try them on. I never
Yeah.
trust that. A lot of us, Amazon has set the standard that returning stuff is free and you can do it as much as possible. I think there's been a pushback from retailers slowly because, who ends up footing that bill. But certainly anything around experience will keep bringing people together and in person, hopefully for the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Experience leads it, and then people will get off the couch or off the stop. They'll pull over on their way home to stop for a good experience. Whereas, like, anything you can get on Amazon are typically goods you buy, household goods you buy on the regular basis, or easy things that are pretty quick.
Let me ask you a collaboration superpower. If you could do a partnership with one person, historic or living, who would it be?
I typically lean to my father and my grandfather in this. I know it sounds cheesy, but I don't know this answer would be the same today if they knew about technology as we do. But I think, watching them grow up in the family business and build and scale without the tools we have today, including the internet, there had to be some superpowers in it that we didn't know about. And so, how they understood demographics or real estate back then without the digital era had to be immaculate and had to be really good at your job. So I lean on that one pretty heavily.
I think that's wonderful. I don't think that's cheesy at all. And I give you kudos because you could have responded the answer that probably most people that come on this podcast want to respond because you technically already collaborated with them directly or indirectly, including Steve Jobs, the father of modern retail, and Elon. So thank you for not saying their names and giving airtime to your role models in your personal life.
Absolutely. I mean, look, those guys definitely did a great job of leading the technology era of retail. But when I look back at superpowers, so I wonder how they would have influenced that decision 10, 20, 30, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Absolutely. Where can Tangent listeners and retail owners and retail operators learn more about SiteRise and connect with you?
www.siterise.app. We'd love to hear about it with questions, comments. We'd love the feedback, please.
Retail looks simple from the outside, but behind every store is a system. And the faster that system works, the faster you get to revenue. Dillon, appreciate you coming on. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your exciting company with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Muchas gracias. If you learned something new or enjoyed the conversation, text a friend the link to this episode right now. You can find links, resources, and ways to connect with us in the show notes.